Jesus is God. Jesus is Lord. Jesus has the victory.
We all have a call to greatness, a desire for it. We want to do something good.
Now is your time. You could change the world, and the world needs changing, so get busy.
Shalom World, God's own channel.
Welcome to Ties of Faith. I'm your host, Christine Watkins.
And I'm your co-host, Frank Brilliant.
You know, Frank, you and I have been friends for a while, and I just realized the other day that I've never asked you this question, and I'm so curious. What kind of music do you like?
I like hard-driving rock and roll music.
That doesn't surprise me.
Right.
And have you ever played an instrument?
I played the flutophone in 4th grade. I was pretty good at it, won a lot of awards.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I tend to like classical music. It just really moves my soul.
Huh.
Yeah, and I was a dancer. I danced with the San Francisco Ballet, and so classical music always just spoke to my heart.
I don't like it. You know, I'll just be flat out honest with you. Not interested. It's boring, slow, played at low volumes. Not my kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, don't be. It just is what it is, you know? Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. Look over there.
What?
Is that a harp over there? What's going on over there? Do you hear that?
Oh my gosh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh my, do you know who that is?
Actually, no.
You wouldn't. This is Anna Maria Mendietta, and she is a virtuoso harpist. And what is she doing in our garden?
Well, clearly playing the harp, but why? I don't know.
Wow, this is beautiful. Let's listen.
Okay.
That was Jesu of Joy of Man's Desiring. That was it. Do you know?
Right. Yeah, that was by Botch. I know that fellow. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah.
Hello. So nice to see you.
Oh, so good to see you too.
This is my friend Frank.
Hello, Frank.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
Would you please join us for a chat now that you're here?
I would love to.
What a nice surprise. So, I'm so curious, how did you come about playing the harp?
Well, the harp actually attracted me when I was 5 years old. Both of my parents were musicians, so we were raised listening to classical music. And as a 5-year-old, I wanted to be different. So for me, it was either the harp or the bagpipes. But luckily, I could spell harp.
What about the flutophone? I was an expert at the flutophone in 4th grade, and I played glowworm for my class assembly.
That's so funny.
It was incredible. Are you impressed? Yes, no, maybe?
I'm impressed,
yes?
but
Okay,
I've
thanks.
never heard of a flutophone.
Huh, okay. I can bring it in on the next show sometime. Maybe I'll show you afterwards. I don't know.
Let's do that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
So you're only 5?
I was 5 years old.
And how is it that you even knew about the harp at age 5?
Actually, my parents would play classical music all the time, and it was Tchaikovsky's music, his Romeo and Juliet, that caught my attention. In the middle of the piece, there's this beautiful harp solo. And as a 5-year-old, I would put my ear to the speaker and I would listen to that harp passage over and over and over again. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I begged my parents, and it took a couple of years actually to convince them I was really serious. So I started when I was 7.
And that's such a young age. And I have a story that did not lead to any talent. But when I was a little tot, probably about 5, that is the song that transported me to some kind of an interior heaven. And I would put my ear next to this reel-to-reel tape that my parents would play, and I would listen to Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, over and over. So to have you in our garden playing that song was such a blessing.
Oh, thank you.
And you have this interesting outfit on. Is it Indian? Is it?
No.
No?
Can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
This actually was the uniform for the World Youth Day musicians in Spain, in Madrid, during the year of 2011 in August.
So you were there?
I was there.
Oh.
And I was a part of the orchestra. They had a full orchestra and a choir, and we performed for all the papal events for the World Youth Day. Even though it's called World Youth Day, it actually takes place over the span of a week with so many different activities.
So how did you end up there? How did you end up going? I'm sure that's something Frank would like to do one day.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Woodstock, you know.
Woodstock.
That's just me. I mean, that's what pops in my head. I was there.
Like
It was awesome.
Woodstock at
No,
all?
not at all.
No.
Well, actually, it was Pope John Paul II that thought of World Youth Day. He wanted to have a celebration with young people and give them the opportunity to pray together, learn about the Catholic Church together, and grow in their faith together. And this was their chance to be with the Pope. So actually, he's done it for quite a number of years, and it's continued. The tradition has continued with Pope Benedict and also Pope Francis.
So this was just a thought in the Pope's mind.
That's right.
And look what's happened since then. Huh?
Exactly. He wanted to, this was part of his new evangelization. And what better way to do it than to involve the young people? So this was to be for teenagers, young adults, and from all over the world. Many, many countries were represented.
Okay, so did you lug your harp over
No, I
there?
didn't.
What happened?
They rented a harp for me.
Oh, they rented a harp.
That's
so
right.
you played in the orchestra.
I played in the orchestra.
Did you ask to play?
Well, you know, it was interesting. It was all part of God's plan, how everything all worked out. I was actually planning to take my nephew to World Youth Day, and I just connected with the organization, and I said, well, I'm going to be there. Would you like to have music? And on their end, and I didn't know this was happening because they didn't tell me until afterwards, it turned out that the harpist for their orchestra was expecting a baby that was due during the time of World Youth Day, and she had just told them that she couldn't do it.
She just told them.
Exactly. And when they got the information from me, it was just at that same time, and they thought it was a miracle. They thought it was definitely God's plan, and for me, it was really a fantastic opportunity and blessing. And the way it worked out too, it couldn't have worked out better. I explained to them that I was bringing my nephew, and if I could enroll him in a youth program so that it could keep him busy while I was involved in rehearsals with the orchestra.
And how old is your nephew?
He was 19 at the time. And they said, oh, no problem, we'll just sign him up and with security and make sure he had clearance, and he can be on the stage as one of the volunteers. Well, what happened when we arrived, our hostess, who was the pianist for the choir, got involved in conversation and asked Walter, my nephew, do you play an instrument? And he said, yes, he played the viola. And she was so surprised because she happened to have a viola in the house. And her mother,
everyone have
that's
a
right,
viola
exactly.
in the house when someone asks for one?
Well, you know what, violists are pretty rare, and violas are even more rare. And her mother, it turned out that her mother used to play, and so she pulled out her viola and said, well, why don't we have you join us in the orchestra? So because she was the pianist, she knew exactly who to call. She called the conductor, and he said, well, let's give it a try. Show up for the rehearsal. And he came, we went to the rehearsal the next day, and he sight read everything beautifully.
Sight read?
Sight read, exactly.
So you have
he was
a
very
musical
talented.
family.
He was very talented. And it really worked out in the best way it could have, because I didn't know that we were going to have 8-hour rehearsals every day for 2 weeks leading up to the performances.
Oh, so your nephew would have been left behind.
Exactly.
Nothing
He
to
would have
do.
been so bored. This was the best way it could have worked out.
Did you see God in all these circumstances?
Absolutely. In fact, every day was full of miracles. So many miracles.
What kind
It was
of
incredible.
miracles?
Well, my goodness, I was witnessing lots of healings, things that were just out of the blue, that people wouldn't expect to happen, would fall into place and beautifully. But we also had opposition too. There were many strange things that would happen that we knew there was some spiritual warfare going on at that
Okay.
time.
And by spiritual warfare, that means good against evil, that heaven is at work and hell is at work, and there's this battle going on.
That's
Because I'm sure with World Youth Day, many souls are saved,
That's
especially the souls of the youth who are present. That's the whole goal. That's why
Exactly.
John Paul II wanted it, so that the youth would be revived in spirit. And it's definitely something, even though you're a little old and over the hill now, Frank,
Right.
definitely something you might be interested in.
Well, I'll tell you about what happened on one of the evenings. It was the night of the vigil. Right before the Sunday Mass, on Saturday night, they had a prayer vigil, a prayer service. 2 million people were there, 2 million young people.
2 million young people.
And it was held outdoors. And in the middle of the service, actually it was right when Pope Benedict started to speak, a sudden storm happened. It was with intense rain, intense winds. The rain was actually going sideways. It was so involved and so intense. All the musicians started running and screaming and leaving the stage. The camera people started panicking, covering their equipment, their television cameras. All the kids out in the field
So it was
were there.
mayhem.
It was mayhem.
What was it like right before the storm hit, and at what point in the Mass did it hit?
Oh, we were having a heat wave.
A heat
Everything-
wave?
A heat wave. Over 100 degrees, and
No cloud in the sky.
No cloud in the sky. It
So
was
from a heat
totally-
wave with no cloud in the sky, we have a tempestuous storm.
Absolutely. It was the oddest thing. We all knew what was going on, and so Pope Benedict calmed everyone down, said, don't move, just stay in your places, let's just pray. And he led everyone in prayer. And I remember they were asking Pope Benedict whether he wanted to leave, and he was just like a captain, he wanted to stay with the ship. And he reassured everyone, let's just pray, and we did.
And is this right before the homily?
This was right before the homily.
It was.
Yes.
So he didn't run off
No.
the quote-unquote stage.
No.
He stood right there in the rain being
That's
poured
right.
upon. So he
That's
was
right.
soaking
He
wet,
was,
just standing there
exactly.
like a rock.
That's right. That's right. And
That's
Just-
what Hendrix did at Woodstock, too.
is that so?
Yeah, just FYI.
Oh my goodness. Well, just to also describe how intense that storm was. All the musicians had cleared the stage. I couldn't run with my harp, but it took
That
four.
would be hard.
It would.
Yeah.
It took 4 of us, 4 men, to hold on to the harp.
Like big, strong men like
because
Frank?
the wind was so fierce.
Yes.
Exactly, to
Oh my
hold it
goodness.
still. Otherwise, it would not have stayed. But Pope Benedict continued praying, and everything started to calm down little by little. And then, as it did, all the musicians entered the stage again, and the chorus as well. And I remember it was so incredible when everything calmed down, was right at the great Amen. Everyone sang together and
Oh my, I
played
got
music
the
in
chills.
unison with the great Amen, and it was totally calm, and it was incredible.
So did that storm say more than perhaps a homily could? Because
That's right.
that we're in a battle and that suddenly the rain can fall, but through prayer the
Through
sun
prayer.
comes out in the end and we say amen.
Exactly.
Oh,
And God is
beautiful.
all powerful. And Jesus won the battle for us.
He did. And he walked on that water.
That's right.
So
That's right.
What do you think about that story, Christine? Is it credible?
well, for me, absolutely credible. I hear it in the way that Anna Maria tells it, that it's a story of heaven and earth mixing in our world to show the battle and the victory.
Does that involve something called grace? I've heard you mention that word before.
That's right.
Ah, okay.
That's right.
That helps.
With any pilgrimage, you will be faced with challenges and obstacles, but the rewards are tremendous, and those rewards are through graces.
Ah,
Exactly.
okay.
Have you been on
And
any other
miracles.
pilgrimages?
Well, you know, right after World Youth Day, we thought we would go to Lourdes. And actually, it had been a dream of mine to go to Lourdes for many years. And every time I was in Europe, something would prevent me from
going to
getting
it.
there. Either airplane, train, whatever it took. I couldn't make
wasn't
it.
gonna
So
happen.
this time I thought, well, if I'm going to be in Spain and we're going to be so close, I'm going to have to take care of all of the plans ahead of time so that there's no opposition at all.
So you were there?
I was there.
Oh.
And I was a part of the orchestra. They had a full orchestra and a choir. The way it worked out too, it couldn't have worked out better. Finally, we got to Lourdes and went to, I checked into the hotel and they said, oh, we're sorry, we already checked you out. We were so late that they had given away our room. So the manager said, let me just work on something.
What would you say to someone at this point with one problem after another? You haven't slept, you're on the road. What if someone came up
12
to you, someone like Frank, that said, why are you doing this? You know, why are you putting yourself through this? What would you say to that?
I knew that it was a miraculous place and that graces would come if I were to make it.
How did you
So-
know that?
The history of Lourdes is just full of miracles. And I just knew, I was just driven to go. And when we were there at the hotel, even though he didn't have a room, somehow he was able to make space for us and gave us the deluxe suite. So anyway,
Right.
we had another blessing.
Did you wake up when you heard
They
that?
said-
The
I want
deluxe
to travel
suite?
with you.
Okay, well they
Wow.
said you better hurry over to the lines at Lourdes because they're going to be closing soon. So we rushed over and we waited a couple of hours in line. Right before, and I'm just a couple of people ahead of me, they closed off the line. They said, that's it. We're not going to take
Right
any more
before
people.
you could
right
go in.
before us.
Oh,
and we were
my
scheduled to
gosh.
catch a plane the next morning to go back home. So this was our only time. Yeah.
And could you explain to the viewers and perhaps to Frank, it sounds like he knows a little bit about it, but
little.
what are these waters? Why do people come? How did they form?
Okay, Saint Bernadette had a vision. She, a vision of Mary, and Mary told her that if she dug in the earth and followed her instructions, even though people all thought Saint Bernadette was crazy, she did what Mary said.
Just to
She
dig in
dug
the dirt.
in the earth, in the dirt, and out came a spring. And with the water from the spring, people were healed. People were healed of many different ailments, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in many different ways. So people flock to Lourdes for healing from all over the world. They have thousands and thousands of pilgrims there.
And this very same water that bubbled up miraculously out of the ground
Out of the
where
ground.
there should have been no water.
Exactly.
Now what does it look like? What is this water doing there?
Well,
what do you see?
They have now a huge church there, and they do have baths outside of the church where they invite people to go into the waters. And so that's where people will wait for hours in line just to go into the waters.
into the waters.
Exactly. And I heard through the grapevine, I was hearing the guards saying that they were going to allow the pilgrims from World Youth Day in, even though they were closing it off to the public. And when I heard that, I showed them my badge from World Youth Day, and he took me by the shoulder and opened the gate and escorted us in. And by that point, I was in tears. The nurses, they help you undress and they wrap you in a towel and they guide you into the water. And I was there to pray specifically for my father who had cancer, my son who had been missing actually for over a year. We
Missing?
had not heard from him.
How old?
He was 20.
Missing.
Missing,
You
right.
did not
No,
know if your son
no.
was dead or alive.
No,
Oh
no.
my.
So, and he had left the church, and so anyway, I was praying for him, my father, and a friend of ours who really needed healing. Went into the water, into the bath, and there's a statue of Mary on the other end. And I went straight to the statue of Mary and prayed for them. And I didn't think of praying for myself, but I was healed through all of that. Before I left on the trip, I had a lump underneath my arm that was growing, and I could feel, even when I would turn my head, that it was there, and I knew I needed to go see the doctor, but there was no time for this before the trip. And my mother even said, you better pray for yourself when you're there. But when I was there, I didn't think of that. I was so focused on praying for my father, my son, and our friend, Irene. And when I got back to the hotel, I could tell something was different. And my mother asked me, I was in contact with my mother, and she said, how's the lump? What lump? I had forgotten I even had it. It was gone, totally gone. And not only that, my father had operations rescheduled independently by the hospital. His operations were scheduled on Mary's feast day of Our Lady of Sorrows. I have a devotion to Our Lady of Sorrows.
Oh, you do?
And the operations were a success. And my son came home on December 12th, the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Oh.
Came home, 11:30 at night, knocked on our door and came home. So all of these things
Right
were
after
absolutely one right after another.
Oh.
All of our prayers were answered, and it was definitely a clear message that Mary heard our prayers, since these happened on her feast days.
And something so beautiful about your story is that you persevered. There was one obstacle, then another, and another, and another, but you prayed with each one. And then it's almost like with each obstacle that you persevered through, there was a counter grace that was more than you could have ever asked for.
That's exactly right. And praise
Beautiful.
God. Praise God.
You know, I love Spanish music, and you were in Spain.
Yes.
And I'm curious, is there any chance, or do you have any song in your repertoire that you could play that's from Spain?
I do. It's a wonderful flamenco piece called Tientos.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll play it for you.
Thank you. Frank, can you bear with this?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Beautiful, beautiful.
You're
welcome. You're welcome.
What a treat.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Phenomenal.
He's into
Amazing.
it.
Incredible. I'm a convert. Everybody. Yeah. You didn't need to even have any effects, any grunge pedals or nothing. No distortion. It was great.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm glad. High five to you, Frank.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being
Oh,
with
you're
us.
so welcome.
You have
You're
graced
so
our
welcome.
garden.
This was so much fun. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. What happened to you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was just quite a performance, you got to admit. I mean, I can't say I've ever heard anything like that before in a harp.
Yeah, well, you hated classical music. It wasn't your thing, and now look at you.
I'm going to go buy some Bach, some Beethoven. I'm going to go check the material out and maybe get into it a little more. Maybe if I played at a high volume, it will be better. Plus, her stories were so moving. I really just felt like I was speechless.
That's true. You were rather quiet today.
Yeah, I was just really touched by her stories. And then the harp music. Woo! I feel like I've been just bowled over by the Spirit.
My gosh. Well, I don't want to say anything more. I'm going to leave you with that. And remember, don't forget those ties of faith.
Shalom tidings. This is good news for a new generation. Discover God's constant presence amidst the hopelessness in our lives. Tiffany Layton writes about losing her young husband to horrific violence in Clinging to the Cross. God's grace showed Anne Noel how to be a merciful woman. Brother Manis Matus tells us why misery, pain, and suffering can indeed be a gift. Lisa Duffy shares her experiences in escaping the dangers of the divorce culture. Patty Knapp understands the infinite value of having a mass said, and so much more. Read about how God gives hope for the heartbroken in the February-March 2015 issue of Shalom Tidings. Visit shalomworld.org/tidings. Also available in Barnes & Noble stores,